All right, go ahead and make sure you are on page 6 of your ELA textbook. We're going to be listening to the first read of our new story. On page 6, I want you to put your finger on the title and be ready to follow along. Remember, this is President Lyndon B. Johnson's speech that he gave. Title is, finger to follow, Voting Rights Act Address. Nearly 100 years after the 15th Amendment to the Constitution gave African Americans the right to vote, they still faced discriminatory practices that frequently kept them from exercising this constitutional right. At the height of the civil rights movement in the mid-1960s, President Lyndon Johnson gave a voting rights speech to Congress on March 15, 1965, calling to end the oppression and disenfranchisement of Black voters. Here are some excerpts from that speech. Paragraph 1. I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy. I urge every member of both parties, Americans of all religions and of all colors, from every section of this country, to join me in that cause. At times, history and fate meet at a single time in a single place to shape a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. So it was at Lexington and Concord. So it was a century ago at Appomattox. So it was last week in Selma, Alabama. There is no Negro problem. There is no Southern problem. There is no Northern problem. There is only an American problem. And we are met here tonight as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans. We are met here as Americans to solve that problem. This was the first nation in the history of the world to be founded with a purpose. The great phrases of that purpose still sound in every American heart. North and South, all men are created equal. Government by consent of the governed. Give me liberty or give me death. Turn the page. Paragraph 6. Those words are a promise to every citizen that he shall share in the dignity of man. This dignity cannot be found in man's possessions. It cannot be found in his power or in his position. It really rests on his right to be treated as a man equal in opportunity to all others. It says that he shall share in freedom. He shall choose his leaders, educate his children, provide for his family according to his ability and his merits as a human being. Many of the issues of civil rights are very complex and most difficult. But about this, there can and should be no argument. Every American citizen must have an equal right to vote. There is no reason which can excuse the denial of that right. There is no duty which weighs more heavily on us than the duty we have to ensure that right. Yet the harsh fact is that in many places in this country, men and women are kept from voting simply because they are Negroes. Paragraph 9. Experience has clearly shown that the existing process of law cannot overcome systematic and ingenious discrimination. No law that we now have on the books, and I have helped put 3 of them there, can ensure the right to vote when local officials are determined to deny it. In such a case, our duty must be clear to all of us. The Constitution says that no person shall be kept from voting because of his race or his color. We have all sworn an oath before God to support and defend that Constitution. We must now act in obedience to that oath. All right, let's go back and take a look at the pictures and the captions. Turn to page 6. And if you look at the bottom there, you'll see that picture and it looks like some officers, military, something. And the caption says, civil rights protesters marching for voting rights in Selma, Alabama on March 7th, 1965, ended up in some altercations with the police. Their actions brought the issue into national focus. That connects back to paragraph 3 when they mentioned Selma, Alabama. On page 7, if you put your finger there on the picture, the caption says, the 15th Amendment was signed into law on March 30th, 1870, giving all adult Black men the right to vote. This commemorative print shows a celebratory parade that took place in Baltimore on May 19th of that year. Turn the page to page 8, the caption for that picture. The number of African Americans registered to vote nearly doubled from 1965 to 1967. And on the last page, the caption says, 2 days after President Johnson's speech, new voting rights legislation was introduced to Congress. The president signed the Voting Rights Act into law on August 6, 1965. In this photo, he is shaking hands with Martin Luther King Jr.